Greetings, everyone. It is the 18th of April, and this is Content Evolution NuWorld. Delighted to have you with us. I'm joined with my co-host, Mike McGuire. Mike, great to have you with us from the West Coast.
Good morning.
Greetings from the East Coast, and we welcome Cindy Kuhn, who is joining us somewhere in between, a little bit south, in the mountains of New Mexico. We will not give you an address, okay? We don't. She will eventually want to be more found than she is right now, but we're glad to find her, with us today. Cindy, you have a background that I would say is really hard, to pin down, right? Because it's so diverse. But how long have you had Lab 5 in existence?
So I started Laboratory 5 in 2001
So it's been around for a while.
Incorporated in 2003.
Yeah.
So we've been busy.
Yeah, so the label that's most visible is Applied Futures Lab, right? So that's the brand name, and Threatcasting and Futurecasting are, also brand names of things that you're going to describe to us today. And don't feel constrained in any way, shape, or form, right, in terms of what you want to share. But I also want to acknowledge that Cindy is the Chief Media Officer for Content Evolution and leads our, discovery and investigation in terms of getting our members and the content inside of Content Evolution published in interesting and remarkable ways. And we're just in the throes of doing that. And thank you for everything that you do to make that real. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Cindy Kuhn. Thanks, Cindy, for being with us.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here today. I'm going to say a few things, and then I'm going to share. When coming today, I was thinking it would be great to just walk you through a super fast speed round experience of what the methodologies that Kevin mentioned that I work with. So I'm an applied experiential futurist. I'm trained as a creative. I also work as a writer and a producer. And my methodologies, the tools that I do this work with, are called Threatcasting, Futurecasting. We also have additional sub-programs that you'll be hearing more about in the coming years, called Storycasting and Protocasting. And so all of these things grow out of the original foresight practice that came about after the Second World War. So we have had foresight since the late 40s, but foresight, I'll show you a chart, does a few things. We need the neighbors that are next door, and we are one of those at Futurecasting and Threatcasting. So I'll show and share that with you. So I'm going to do a super fast. I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to let you have a speed round experience of what a sponsor would experience and what participants in our experiential research exercises, how they would go through the process. Normally this would be many hours and many days, but you're going to feel it in a speed dating round. So let me share screen here, and I will present. All right, and I'm just going to push that up over there in the corner. Okay, so welcome, builders. Today we're going to step into the future with the Applied Futures Lab, and you will emerge prepared for possibility. I'm Cindy Kuhn with the Applied Futures Lab. I'm the founder, and I'll also be your producer, your analyst, and your facilitator for this event today. All right. Gotta figure out how to hit next. Okay. We open every event with a poem. We use poetry in our futures work because it reminds everyone in the room that our primary focus of our work is human-centric. And for us, poetry stands in as the human throughout our process and our practice. So I'm going to read this poem today. And as you go on your journey of creating an effects-based model together today, recall this poem as if you are recalling all of humanity that you are carrying during this hard work together today. Evolve. Evolve in me through energy. Evolve in me through salvation, resolution, and restoration. Evolve in me through healing and meditation. Evolve. Evolve in my growth, in my future, and even through my transformation. This poem is titled Evolve by Margarita Cameron. Okay. So I'm going to try to figure out where to keep moving myself, or I might just make myself go away altogether so that I'm not in your way. So threatcasting and futurecasting are two methodologies that I'm going to quickly walk you through what they are. And they are the tools that we use at the Applied Futures Lab. At the lab, we are very focused on human-centered experiences and envisioning possible futures, both opportunities and threats. After we do the experiential work that you'll see us doing together today, we then provide actionable reports to the sponsor in order to either disrupt, mitigate, and recover from a potential threat or enable for a potential opportunity. But everything we do through our original gathering of data, our exercises, our analysis, and our outputs, the human is at the center of everything we do, no matter the topic, no matter the content. These methodologies that I'm going to walk you through are completely, entirely content agnostic, meaning you can put anything into them that you're curious about. And that's the key word here. If you are curious about finding out what might happen in an area out into the future, that's where we begin. So what is applied experiential futures? It's a way to change the story and therefore change the future. It's a way to look at a particular specific topic, and then we use our social science methods to go deep on the research up front. And what we're looking for is a whole span of things that are trends and data that we're going to use to go and build those models together. We're going to dive into really deep things. We're going to pinpoint focus on the areas that decision makers tell us are the pieces they need the most. So throughout this process, keep in mind, everything goes back to delivering to the decision maker the potential and possible futures that they asked about. That's our primary focus the whole time. So this is a map that is an overview of how applied experiential futures creates the potential possible futures that we present. We start over here looking at today. We gather all the right people. You're going to see this in a deeper map in a second, but we gather all the right people. We bring together the tools that are necessary, all of the resources, and we carry those into the future time horizon that the sponsor has asked us to look at, often 10 years out into the future. Those are our inputs that we are putting all of that together as we build a vision out here for the future. Then we start to backcast to today. We're going to look at a halfway point, we're going to look at a midway point, and we're going to look at a tomorrow. Future casting it always has threats attached to it because We don't operate in utopia, so we have to look at real. But it is more focused on opportunities. So then our sister methodology is threat casting. So threat casting uses this same categories of inputs, and we use future casting inside of threat casting. So these methodologies use pieces of each other, and I'll show you that in how that kind of goes down the road here. Our whole focus, as I mentioned, is if there is a decision maker trying to figure out what do we need to think about, work on, build, know, who do we need to gather for this curious question we have, our job is when they see it happen because they have an inkling it might show up down the road, is that quote at the bottom. We've talked about this before. We know where to start. The whole focus is we don't carry crystal balls. We don't predict. Everything is science to demonstrate here's what to look for. And that's the most important part of our goal of what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so this is the threat casting map. So previously on the future casting one, I mentioned people. So on the threat casting map, when this comes in, we have a series of 6 phases. And by the time you get to this map, we've already accomplished that phase 1, which is the gathering of the people. We have a very strict protocol that must go in order. And phase 0, you'll see more about that in a second, has happened when we're using this map to get our data. So this is our data inputs right across the top. We are pulling from all of these sources. Data with an opinion are our subject matter experts. As I mentioned, we're often doing a 10-year out time horizon. And what we're doing is we're building a future vision for 2034 based on that curious question. And we're going to build a really specific person in a place experiencing an event, which you'll see the workbook shortly here. And then this is our backcasting, right? So if we're starting at 2034 and we have an event, we want to figure out how are we going to disrupt and mitigate from that. We might also have to potentially recover, depending on if our disruption and mitigation helped enough. We also build in flags and gates, and these I'll review deeper down the road here. And those are a way to pay attention to when you know things are coming so that you have a heads up. Okay, so this is what I mentioned at the top. So there are different futures tools and methods that I always like to share this image so that it's a little bit of a, oh, aha, okay, so we're all in a community together. So you start over here with strategy. So strategy helps people directionally navigate and have a sense of place. And then we move into scenario planning, which helps to simulate the concepts of that navigation and what might. We get over to foresight, and that helps to envision with some concrete items and elements that we can really put into those places. And then you come to the project action, which is this area that is my practice is in, is I like to really say we're the script writers. So future casting, threat casting, story casting, protocasting. What we're doing here is we're building the models that are the scripts that we then hand over to our neighbors who are the world builders. They're going to take our scripts and use those to tabletop build into how might this look if we started to make this in the physical. And then our scripts, along with the world builders results, goes into live action, wargaming, and experiential out in the wild. So that's where we live. And I think that that's helpful to kind of get a sense of what is the piece here that we're looking at today. Okay. So this is the breakdown of the methodology. This is how we walk through from beginning to end. And I share this because if you have any familiarity with foresight, you might recognize ultimately future casting and threat casting, they're a series of foresight tools pushed together, created into a new social science that was invented by my partner at the Threatcasting lab, Brian David Johnson. He invented threatcasting while he was at Intel, the chip company up in Portland. And after 10 years of using it there, he and they realized that it was something that should not be held in industry, and instead left Intel. We stood up the lab at Arizona State University, and now the government and the military has access to these non-proprietary tools, which, by the way, these are completely non-proprietary. There are books and information, and everyone can do this, and you can do this completely on your own. You don't even need me. So this is the steps, and you're going to see those. The very first thing we must do, this is step 0. This is phase 0. We have to craft a very exquisite question. It has to be a question that has a constellation of things around it, so that when we seek the subject matter experts and seek out the data, we have a bunch of things to look at. The example I always like to give is, I can't make a question that is, what is the future of climate change? That is too big of an ocean to boil. So instead, we would craft it in a way to say, what is the future of climate change as affected by melting polar ice caps and penguins? Now you can see I have a constellation of things there that I can go and research in advance to put into the data for the event. So the data collection then occurs, which is subject matter expert interviews. We also seek articles, videos, book chapters, a lot of reports, different sources that the sponsor would like us to consider. And then we begin to create an event. So we build experiential gamified workshops that bring participants into the room, never the subject matter experts. They ruin the data. Only people who are nearby the topic, as well as individuals who are poets, actors, writers, PR professionals, wild thinkers, because we want the effects-based models to get juicy.
Government, hinting at the Prime Minister's position in a radio interview, and he said, we have to remember there's still
that's not me. That's
campaign in Gaza.
Okay. Okay, and then we get everybody, all the participants in the room, and in the room we build small teams. I'll walk through that, and we build a person in a place experiencing an event. And then we're future casting, we're backcasting, we're building the flags and gates. All of this now, once we get to number 3, all the way through number 9, that's the experience in the room live or virtually. We also do. And then the participants create all of these as components of their models inside their workbooks, and then they submit it to us. And then our team goes to work and we analyze all of the data. All right, we are going to move into a super round of seeing what the workbooks look like and how the participants would experience the request of creating the workbooks. But I want to start with my buddy Bruce Sterling. If you don't know him, he's the inventor of speculative fiction, just an incredible human. And he says, people need a motivating vision of what comes next, and the awareness that more will happen after that. That the future is a process, not a destination. So we're going to take a breath. You have everything you need. Everything that you came with today is exactly what to put into this. I invite you to call up your courage, your imagination, and your creativity. We're actually going to do a future casting, threat casting, quick round exercise that has to do with healthcare. And the thing I want to express to you is this has a dark component to it so that you can see how we can take it from threat to opportunity. And the biggest thing I want you to carry for the rest of this time, other than holding on the human and humanity, is the bigger, bolder, braver, more creative, more imaginative, and even darker you can go in things you think about over the next many minutes here, what I will say to you is, if you can think of it, the adversary can think of it, the competition can think of it, and so can anyone else out there. So try to think big, because that only helps us get closer to where others may have already thought. We're also going to go 10 years out into the future. So I want you to center yourself in April 2034. Sit in that space. If you find yourself in your thoughts thinking things as we move through this exercise, and suddenly you think, well, is that really 10 years out, or is that really more like 4 or 5 years out? Try to push yourself further. If you have a chance right now to play along, grab a pen or a piece of paper, a pen and a piece of paper, or something digital to take notes on if you want to. Otherwise, just continue to listen and you'll experience the process. Okay, so we are going to do a healthcare project together today. Our research question is, what are the future threats from a cyber attack on critical medical and emergency infrastructure? And how might city leaders and first responders regain public trust? Okay, so if you take a look at that research question, you can see it has a constellation around it, which would allow us at the lab to pre-investigate, research to collect data around these several different nodes that we use for the next piece. So this is your research question. So you're going to keep this top of mind. Okay. So now that question is what we would go to our subject matter experts with, and we'd ask them when they think about that, what are their thoughts? We would follow that up with, regarding that, what keeps you up at night around excitement with opportunity and fear of threats? We collect that data. We also seek it in any other areas we can find it. As I mentioned, videos, articles, other things. That's the question, and we ask that singular question. We don't ask any other questions, and we only use the data based on that singular. So then what happens after this is a different grouping of synthesized data that I put in here today, but I just want to walk you through, because you're going to have your own piece of data that you're actually going to use today. So this is a generic one, but what we do at the lab is, after we do all of that research, generally we in the lab pre-synthesize the data, and we create these type of data points that we build into our workbooks. Those data points are then the prompts that the participants use to build their models. So I wanted to give you some generic ones in here so you see what a singular prompt looks like. It's just a quick note. It's just a quick sentence. It can be a bullet, something just to jog the memory of an important point that was made. But today I'm going to let you guys synthesize your own data, because when we do 2-day Big 10 exercises, we do have the participants synthesize in the room. If we do shorter ones that are 1 day or a half day, we pre-synthesize. So this was an example of some pre-synth. So I just wanted to show you how short they are. And okay, so now grab your pen and your paper, get a sticky note, something digital. I'm going to have you have the experience of take notes while you watch. So this is an AI created. We just created this a couple weeks ago as a fast prototyping. So you'll see some repeats. This was all mid-journey and put together. While you're watching it, what you're looking for, the notes you're taking are, what are high level things that you hear that may be useful 10 years in the future to reflect back on that research question. All right, here we go.
Meticulously orchestrated cyber attack cripples a city's healthcare and public health systems. Chaos unfolds when the hack disables the networks, turning medical devices inoperable. Electronic health records are encrypted, and emergency services cannot respond to calls. Simultaneously, the attack disrupts the city's critical infrastructure, sabotaging supply chains, manipulating online information, and causing a catastrophic breakdown of services.
Be advised, we're en route. We are transporting a 58-year-old male with multiple fractures. I lost the nav. What hospital did they send us to? We need to get moving. His name came up in our system, but for some reason, we don't have any history for him.
Did anyone call IT about the nurse's station?
You know where you are? You know what your name
Get them
is?
into the trauma bay.
We have a 58-year-old male, past medical history unknown. He was the restrained driver of a vehicle.
What's going on?
I don't know.
I can't log on.
The network's down.
All the screens are locked up.
Hurry, get the ventilators on the red
Can you
plug.
get in the med room? We still get meds.
No, the whole system is down. We can't access any patient medical records. Even the pharmacies are locked out.
We need to go on diversion.
This is a citywide attack. The whole city is on diversion. None of the hospitals in the city can take patients. No ERs, not even urgent care.
It went down again. Do we have the address? I need somewhere to take this patient.
Get back in here. We're losing them.
We are overwhelmed. Everything is down. We can't handle this.
Okay. So that is a sci-fi prototype our team created as an input. So
Can I
the-
ask a quick question?
Yes, of course.
In this particular case, is there this assumption that a lot of the data and information is decentralized, which makes it more difficult to do what this kind of cyber attack would I mean, is that in the data?
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Can you
Okay.
hold that thought just for a quick second?
Sure.
I'll show you what to do with that.
Okay.
So in this example I'm giving you, you would have no further data. None. This would be the only data you would have in the room in this example. I wouldn't give you those pre-synth notes. I wouldn't have any other information. In this example we're using today, I would only show you what's live in the room. So I would show you this. I might show you subject matter expert videos, but there's two you're moving forward right now. You have no additional data. This is all you have to work with. So start there. All right. So now that you have the data you are receiving to work with today, I will send you out on small teams. So right now would be the time that you would be sent into small teams of 3 or 4. Even if we were virtual, we'd now put you in breakout rooms. I want to pause here for a quick second to say the team activity of everything is intensely gamified. When you come into the room or even when it's online, everyone receives team names, team matching game pieces, team badges. This immediately creates camaraderie between the 3 or 4 team members and has them competing against other teams and in action right away. So you would, at this moment, be put on your teams. The next thing I would say to the teams is you need one volunteer member who's the scribe. So today, you guys are going to be your own individual scribes. You're going to take notes and you're going to fill out your own workbook just on your scratch paper today. But we always have one scribe that fills out the workbook on behalf of the whole team. We also have one team member who volunteers to be a reporter. Some of you today might have fun with this and you may want to do a quick report out. We won't give everyone 2 minutes, but normally our standard is 2 minutes. Because everything is gamified, we also treat it like a movie event. So you're writing a movie script. When you report out, you report it like a movie trailer. I'll talk more about that during the report out. And then also in our methodologies during our workshops, there are never any observers. No one hangs out in the room to watch. Everyone plays, everyone participates, because it ruins the data if someone is lurking. So we never allow that. Everyone has to be fully engaged on teams. Okay. How do you threatcast and futurecast? I already went over the team scribes. You're going to do this for yourself. You're going to use your synthesized data. So you have a few notes that you took from the video. That's your data for today. You're going to see in your workbooks, you're going to walk through and begin creating a person and a place experiencing an event. You're going to spend time on that event. You're going to build a threat vector. You can put in some opportunities. We're going to do some expanding of the experiences and some enabling. I'm going to pause right here to say the reason we push people into expansion and enabling is because it deepens the research, and you'll see that in a second. We also build in time to pause, to have conversation, discussion, and we backcast as you saw on that original map. We have everybody build in flags and gates. I'll walk you through that in a second. And then normally right here too, I just want to say, obviously I'm trying to go really fast and I'm trying to give you just a sense up, but I take each one of these normally and walk the teams through how to do this. So if you were in the room, you would have a good hour and a half learning how to threatcast, futurecast through this list, but I'm just sharing it quickly today. So, and then we walk you through the full workbook, how to do it, and then the speaker. And as I said today, if you come up with anything, do share. Okay, so teams will now be in teams, either virtually in breakouts or in person. In person is always a lot more fun, but we do virtual as well. So you open your workbook. Each team has a workbook that is assigned to them. So they are digital workbooks and they fill them out interactively. And the first step they take is they make sure they have their right workbook with their right team name on it. And normally the rounds are 2 to 2.5 hours. So from the time I say, okay, you've been taught, you know how to do all of this, get in on your teams. And then the minute we hit the go button, they have about 2 to 2.5 hours to fill out this entire workbook that I'm going to walk you through. Okay, so this is our beginning workbook. So now this again is generic data, but this is where your data would go. So if you wrote a few notes today from that video, you probably only have 2 or 3 notes, but normally when we do this, we can have up to 100 lines of synthesized data. So how we gamify that is if we're in person, we have big fun 60-sided dice that each team gets, and they roll the dice 3 times and come up with their 3 unique lines of data. Those then become their prompt for that round. So they stick with that and they're going to build their whole model around that. If they're virtual, we use digital randomizers. Same scenario though, same exact situation. We do this because we do not want the participants to stop and slow down and make selection on the data. We want it randomized because across multiple teams, we'll get most of the data covered. So at this point, you will want to take, if you made notes about a few things from the video, this is then what we do is the next step is we say, okay, now you have these 3 points of data. What are the implications that can be drawn from these 3 prompts? And every question I ask here, it's always referenced back to the research question. So when we're in the room and when I'm virtually facilitating, the research question is always back up on the screen. And so everything goes right back to that. So when I say, what are the implications that can be drawn from these 3 prompts as related to your research question? That is all to keep everybody on path so they stay in the same lane. And then we ask, is this negative, positive, or both? And it can be both, and to discuss that a little bit. And then, do you have any initial thoughts about what could be done? That is the first page of the workbook. And I should say too, with all of these workbook sections that I'm running you through, teams can go back and forth. So if they think of something later on down the line, they can come back into this one and change their answer at any time. So they can move around. Okay, so now this is where we begin to build our future scout. And I call it a future scout because I like participants to imagine this. Sometimes I'm asking you to work with really dark things, and sometimes I'm asking you to work with absolutely unbelievable opportunistic things. Both of those things can feel very uncomfortable to the human. The threats can feel uncomfortable because it's hard to admit to what our minds can possibly imagine. An opportunity, it's hard to admit what our minds could imagine because we don't want people to think we think in that big, bold way. Both are extreme challenges for the human mind. So if I say, it's not you, you're building a character, you're building a scout that you're going to send out into the future, have them take a look around, then they're going to come back and report to you. That's a lot easier to handle for the human psyche than them thinking, I'm doing this. So keep that in mind, that that's a really important piece of this whole process. So then what's going to happen here is we're going to start by saying, who is this person? Where do they live? What's their broader community? What's their occupation? And I want you to give me as much as you can. I want you to go deep on this person. I want you to tell me all about them. We're going to even go more about this person. I want to know about hobbies, activities, who's in their life, what's going on. And then we're going to get to an event. So this event could be, again, negative or positive. And then how does this person experience the event? So are they at work? Are they out in public? Are they at a community-based something? Are they in an environment with strangers? Tell me, how are they experiencing this? Where are they? And then an event occurs. Now I want you to describe the event as it affects, and this is where the research question would go. So this is, again, just a generic, how it affects that. And then we're going to go into if there's a threat actor. So if we're working in threat casting, and also when we're working in future casting, we still have to have threats, as I mentioned. We don't work in utopia, so everything's not happy and joy. We have to see what are the obstacles in order to get to the opportunities. So there's always something that needs to move, be amiss, cause something. And a lot of people, I just want to put a little pin in this because a lot of people often when we get to this point want it to be things like climate change, which I will say you can do. Climate change can be the threat actor, but then you have to have a secondary order effect. So you have to bring in a human. So you can have something like, a hurricane can hit, but in order for you to get the best data that's real, because here's the thing, humans do weird stuff. So you got to insert the human back in. So if we have a hurricane, I would encourage someone to have a cyber attack or something of that nature. Because if you try to run this with just technology or just nature, you will not get all the data you need because those pesky humans do really weird things that we have to plan for. All right. Now here's where we get to expanding the experience. So why this section is really important is because people will have a very good time building their person and building their threats and building their opportunities. They will have a lot of fun with it. However, a lot of that data won't be super necessary when we go into analyze. And so we ask them to drill down a little bit deeper because they might just put a line about something in particular about the event. And to them as a team, they may have talked about it for half an hour, but it only appears as one line. And so there's no way for me as an analyst to know that was really important to them. So expanding the experience questions let us go much deeper on where their thinking is. And then we do that in enabling as well. So this is where we start to get at what has to be in place for the event to occur. So enabling questions are between now and the next 9 years, things like what new training skills or capabilities need to be developed. That's in advance. So we're asking you to think about if this event occurs 10 years out, both in the positive and the negative, what might have occurred or been released into the marketplace. Okay, and then this is where we really pause as a team and we begin that backcasting process, and you have a discussion where the team has a real come together about, well, what, just based on what we just did, what we just created, what do we think could be potential ways to disrupt, mitigate, recover, and enable potential opportunities? So normally you would spend some time as a team running through that. And then you're going to use that discussion and that potential to now build action. Because these methodologies do not just say, here's what could happen. They say, here's what could happen. Here's what's very likely to happen. Here's what to watch for. And when that begins happening, here's what you need to do. So this is the part right here where that begins to build. So I have a little fire there because I like to explain flags and gates can be a little bit confusing for participants because you're trying to put in stop gaps, but you're not sure really where to do it or what action should really be taken. So imagine it like this. We're all sitting around a campfire, having a kumbaya. We're totally hanging out and talking about our conversation here. Suddenly, the wind whips up and it's really starting to blow now. And we all look over and there's 4 flagpoles off to our right with flags raised on them. The wind whips so hard that the first flag on the first pole rips off and lands right into our fire. Boom, it burns up right now. We can't do anything about it. But over on our left is this gate. And this gate, we hear again whipping in the wind and it starts to blow. We have a choice. We can get up, we can walk over, and either we can pull that gate and lock it open so we let things move through, or we can close it tight and lock it so nothing gets through. So think about gates as you can do something about it. You can still make changes. And then your flags, they're sequential. So if we see that first flag fall, we put in place, your flag 1 fell. You better do these things or flag 2 is going to fall. So that is all structured into the action report, and the participants begin to build that live in the exercise. Okay, so I'm moving really fast here. I'm going to leave time for questions, though. I'm just trying to get through the overarching how it all works. So then we get to, we're nearly complete here. Your model is almost complete inside of the workbook. At the 30-minute mark, or sometimes less, sometimes it's 20 minutes, we ask all teams to pause. We ask the team member that volunteered to be the reporter to take the computer of the person who is typing into their small group and read aloud what they have written so far for their model. And we ask them to ask each other the question, is that a movie we would watch? And if the team is like, that's not really a very interesting movie. They have that final 30 minutes to juice up their model to make it far more interesting. Side note for a second, the reason we do that is because we get really rich, robust, round data when we do this. The other thing we do is when the person is creating their person in a place, they fall in love with these folks. They feel like they know them. And that's part of the methodologies. Ultimately, they're kind of an empathy hack because you develop these feelings for this person, the scout that you've built, and you want to then enable a grand opportunity or disrupt a potential threat. And when they get to this point at the 30-minute mark, they really want to make sure, is my hero receiving everything they need? Does this tell the final tale of how do we fix this? And so this is a really important part of taking the data, pushing it all back in and making sure the team can really hear themselves back and reflect and say, is this what we're intending to say? And then the final step of their workbook is we ask them to title it, and we make a big deal about this. Again, I go back to the movie reference and I say, please treat it like a movie title that you would see on a cinema marquee. Make it catchy, make me want to see your movie. These experience titles are really key and important because what it does is it tells us as the analysts what the team thought really was their most important element. As an example, if they said way back when they were building this person, Bob uses an EpiPen, and then they never brought it up again and they built this whole story, but they built the story thinking the order of effects had to do with the fact that Bob forgot his EpiPen at work, but it's not fully really there. But if the title is Bob forgot his EpiPen at work, now I know to go all the way back and make sure the EpiPen is a part of the story when I'm analyzing. That's what we do with this to ensure we're on the same page with the builders who have created these models. All right. So then we hit the report out, and we have either, if we're doing it virtual or live, same thing. We have each team have their reporter stand up and they present the team name. So everyone knows what team it is. They present out that movie marquee experience title, and then they give their 2-minute movie trailer, which again is just the highlights. And we make it very fun and gamified again. So there's a loud beeping timer that if you go over your 2 minutes starts going off. And if we're in the room together, the facilitator starts chasing them around and making a big deal. And we treat it like you're doing a movie, thank you at the Oscars, so that people understand just the highlights. Because if you say too much, people hear less.
Cindy, I'm also going to point out that you've got 10 minutes to the top of this call when we normally conclude. So just
okay. Yep. This is my almost second to last slide, I think here. So then what we're doing when we're starting the report outs is we're asking everyone individually in the room, not as a team, to write down the team name, the story, a little note, and then at the very end, we vote. When we're in the room, we have teeny tiny little dollhouse-sized books and hashtags that they drop in the buckets to vote for the team. And when we're online, we do it differently. Why we have teams vote on their favorite story is it helps our sci-fi writers, when we produce our reports, know which stories resonated the most. And we often use those to build our science fiction stories that we use. All right. And then that's the end of it. And then if we're doing multiple rounds, multiple days, everything that we just walked you through, the teams stay together the whole time, but they choose new prompts and they build whole new models for every round. So if we have a 2-day big tent event with 10 teams, we end up with a lot of data at the end of that to analyze. So the Threatcasting book is out now from Springer Nature. You can get it on Amazon. The Futurecasting book is coming out this year. We collaborate with lots of different groups and organizations. Those are also on the website. We have a press. We publish our reports, and all of our reports that are available publicly, they're available to any of you, and I'll show you another way you can get those than just the website. We also build, I didn't go into this today, this is a whole nother avenue we do. We build things called sci-fi prototypes. The animation you watched was a sci-fi prototype. We make comic books, graphic novels, and a bunch of other things, which, you know, in particular, generals, CEOs, really busy people, these things can be up to like 150 pages. These are, you know, 10 to 30. So if you're trying to get the concept across, a sci-fi prototype is really helpful. All right, and I will close you with, this is our buddy Ron Green at MasterCard, who says, Threatcasting Futures gives us a chance to build on our relationships, our thinking, and our ideas year after year. We're developing an informed, textured picture of the future. We're anticipating how futures might threaten businesses like MasterCard, institutions like Congress, and free society like the United States. That's from a testimony Ron Green gave to Congress about our threatcasting methodology. All right, questions? And then here's the other thing. I'll just put this next thing up for a quick second so you can see. So I have a hub with all of our, I'll just say lots of our partners are academic, and so they are challenged often by keeping their websites up. So I have a hub where I maintain, that was as polite as I could be, our publications and our sci-fi prototypes separate from the website that I'm happy to share, that is publicly available, to always have the latest. All right, and with that, I did it.
You did do it. Fantastic. I just want to emphasize something that you said right at the beginning, right? But it's worth repeating because you say it so often, is this is all public, right? I mean, before the pretty cover, you know, I had the,
Oh, yeah, I know.
more,
The ugly color.
yeah, but I mean, the content is great, right?
Yeah.
It's all there, right? It's available, right, to everyone who's listening. Cindy's better at it because she's been doing it for so long, right? So, you know, there's no question that there's a lot of skill involved in catalyzing, right, this, and doing it both virtually and in person. So well done. Very interesting. Let's first go to Mike, because I always give Mike the first question, and then I'll look for other people who have questions for you before we conclude. Mike.
Thanks, Kevin. Cindy, that was outstanding. I do have a question about the methodology, not the methodology so much, that seems fairly clear for having heard it the first time. I get it. Like, you're not that you're speaking for the MasterCard executive, but the question I have is this, once they go through the first workshop, do you give them instructions like, or guidance that says, hey, you might want to do this once a year, or you might need to do this twice a year? I mean, is there, how do you prevent them from saying, doing it, going through the exercise, and then they're like, okay, we're fixed for the future now, it's all good?
I mean, I tell them over and over, but I mean, MasterCard started Threatcasting 7 years ago, and it was their internal decision. Every summer, everyone in MasterCard Cyber globally, there are 6,000 individuals, and so they participate over this every summer in a new Threatcasting every year. We also do that with other organizations who do annual and quarterly. We have the Command College out in California we do this with. So certainly people do it. Our favorite thing is to have a sponsor say, we want to look at this, and we also want to buy the piece that one of our people walk with you. So I have lots of organizations that I trained them while their project was going on, and so they do go off and do it on their own.
Right.
That's my favorite way to do it.
Follow-up question, do you also encourage, not that, again, I guess maybe privacy issues or security or concerns, is there a part of the process where different companies who participated sometimes get together and
Oh,
share
yeah.
their experiences?
Oh God, yeah, totally. And so here's a perfect example. The other thing I didn't mention is when we're doing an in-person exercise, we work really hard to bring previous threatcasters in because it makes the data richer because they know how to push people quicker. And so one of the things we do is previous threatcasters from previous organizations, we bring them back in and then we do an intentional, if it's a 2-day happy hour in between, where we have a nighttime come together and riff on where they've been since. So yeah, it's part of it. I just couldn't talk about all the things we do today. Yes.
Sorry.
Todd, you had a question? Join us.
Hi, Todd.
Hi, Cindy. I just want to make a comment as somebody who has participated in Futurecasting just over 3 years ago. What that experience is like. First, the team that we were assigned to, those people, I did not know any of them, and I am still in touch with everyone but one of that team. It is such an experience that it is bonding and it builds relationship. Second, it's so much fun. And that's part of the reason it builds relationship is you're having so much fun together that you want to keep being engaged and involved. And then the third thing I'll say about it is as you're in the fun process, you don't understand the magical outputs that come from it. So we're just having fun, being creative, collaborating together. And then when you see what the final results are, it's kind of like we did that. And you see the connection points. So it is effective and magical.
Yay. Thank you. It's so true. I mean, that's why I always try to say gamified, because it's meant to be, it's experiential research. So you came in the room knowing you were a part of research being conducted, but I want you to forget that that's what you're doing shortly thereafter and just begin to have fun.
Right. Very good.
All right.
Let me just see, Andrea is gone. So she made a comment in chat that she had done something similar at IBM. So I'm glad that we had an opportunity to share this with everyone. And Cindy, it's remarkable work. I can't emphasize enough that when you make work fun, right, it actually turbocharges the outcomes. So I'll kind of underscore what Todd was saying. That should always be a goal, is if you can somehow, I mean, the term has been used, gamify, all right, but the idea of making it engaging, making it fun, right, is and then having a remarkable outcome that was unanticipated. Yeah, and that's always very interesting. So thanks everyone.
I just saw Martin's note, so I'll say would love to talk to you and update anyone else on. Obviously, I had to just give you the gist here today, and would love to follow up anytime on that. I didn't talk about, what the analysts then do, how we get there, and then the action reports and the prototypes we construct, which is a whole nother part of the practice. So
Martin, I'll make a connection between you and Cindy after the call. Again, Cindy, thank you so much for being with us. Gratitude, and everyone, in everything you do, be intentional and ask better questions. Thanks.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Cindy.